Hey guys, let's get started with our today's guided practice activity. So now today, as you have already learned from the reading, we are going to talk about food chains and food webs. Food chain is literally a depiction of how animals eat and survive in their community. If you look right over here, this is a food chain. It tells us how lettuce, which is a producer, is being eaten by a green fly, which is a primary consumer. So primary consumers are herbivores, which means they only eat plants. And then the green fly is eaten by the ladybird. Now the ladybird becomes a secondary consumer because it can eat either the producer and or the primary consumer. And the secondary consumer, which is a ladybird, is being eaten by a thrush and the thrush by a cat. The thrush becomes a tertiary consumer because it can eat 1, 2, and 3 different types of food sources for it to survive. Now, let's try and answer these questions while looking at this food chain. What does the arrow mean in a food chain? Of course, the arrow, like I already said, is a depiction of what is being eaten by a member of the ecosystem community. So it tells us the direction in which the process of eating to survive takes place, right? So lettuce is eaten by a green fly, so the arrow is pointing in this direction. So it's a depiction. Name the producer in the food chain. So the producer are normally plants, so we can go ahead and say that it's going to be the lettuce. Question C. Name the third trophic level in the food chain. The third trophic level is the third step from the beginning of the food chain. That's what a trophic level is. If you're looking at the second trophic level, it would be 1 and 2, so the green fly. But the third trophic level will be 1, 2, and 3, so that's the ladybird. Now let's look at question number D. Name the tertiary consumer in the food chain. Now the tertiary consumer is the one that eats both the primary and the primary consumer, the secondary consumer, both of them. So we know that the primary consumer is the green fly, the secondary is the ladybird. So the tertiary is going to be the thrush. What is the ultimate source of energy that drives the food chain? Question number E. Now, if there was no sun, photosynthesis would not take place. If there was no photosynthesis, the plants would not survive. So the ultimate source of energy is the sun. Now let's move on to the second question. Look at these food chains. Now they have 4 different types of food chains. Grass, slug, thrush, and cat. Grass, slug, and fox. So these are the different types of food chains that can occur within an ecosystem. Now question A. Use the food chains to help you fill in the arrows on this food web. One has been added for you. The one over here is slug being eaten by the thrush. Now let's try and fill the rest of them in. Let's look at the first one. Grass is eaten by the slug. So we're going to go ahead and make that arrow. The slug is eaten by the thrush. That's already here. Now the thrush is eaten by the cat. Let's go ahead and make that arrow. Let's move on to the next one. Grass is eaten by the slug, which is already down here. Slug is eaten by the fox. So let's go ahead and make that arrow. Let's move on to the third one. Grass is eaten by the rabbit. Let's go on and make that arrow. And the rabbit is being eaten by the fox. So that's over here. Last one. Grass is eaten by the rabbit, which is already here. And the rabbit is eaten by the cat. Let's go ahead and make that one. So that's how these food chains come together to form a complicated web. So if there's only one line like this, it's called a food chain. But if all of these different ones come together and form a complicated web, it's called a food web. It tells us all possible ways in which these organisms can interact with each other when it comes to their survival. Now let's use this food web to kind of answer the rest of these questions, B, C, D, and E. Name the producer in this food web. So in this food web, as we already know, producers are normally plants. In this case, it's going to be grass. Question number C. Name a consumer in this food web. So it says any consumer. It's not specifically mentioning if it's a primary or a secondary. So anything that eats is a consumer. It can be a slug, it can be a thrush, it can be fox, anything. So I'm just gonna go ahead and write slug, but you can also write fox or thrush or cat or rabbit. All of these are technically the right answer because all of these are consumers. All of these eat something else to survive. The only thing that's not a consumer is a grass because it does not eat anything else. It survives on its own, right? So any of these is a right answer. What eats rabbits? So as you can look over here, rabbits can be eaten by either a cat or a fox. So that's our answer. Either a fox or a cat. Either of them is a right answer. What does a fox eat? Now let's look at all of the arrows that go towards the fox. One is a slug, the other is a rabbit. So those two are the right answers. Slug and rabbit. I hope these answers make sense to you. If not, please go ahead and ask me any questions that you might have. If your answers don't look similar to these, go ahead and make those changes. These are the most accurate answers to these questions. All right, guys, have a great day, and I will see you later. Bye.